Amara's day started like any other. The city's busy streets filled with honking cars and people rushing by, each with their own story, their own mission. But Amara's mission was different. She wasn't in a rush to catch a train or attend an important meeting. She was simply trying to survive another day, a day where the weight of her struggles might feel lighter, a day where she could hope for something better, or at the very least, get through the day with a smile. She worked at 2 different jobs. The first was as a barista in a local coffee shop, where she spent hours making cups of coffee for customers who rarely smiled back. The second job was cleaning in a nearby office building, scrubbing floors and wiping down desks late into the night. Both jobs paid just enough to cover her rent, utilities, and basic needs. But there was little left over for the things she actually wanted in life. And sometimes that meant going without food or other simple comforts. Amara had always been a dreamer. From the moment she could remember, she'd had a passion for fashion. She had always loved clothes, not just wearing them, but creating them. The bright patterns and colors of her African heritage mixed with the trendy styles she saw on the streets of her city fascinated her. She dreamed of opening her own boutique, a place where her unique style could shine and where others who shared her love for fashion could find something that spoke to them. But that dream felt so far away, almost unreachable. Her parents had always taught her the value of hard work. They had worked their entire lives just to get by, but they never gave up on their dreams. Amara was the same. She refused to give up on her dream of having her own boutique, no matter how difficult things seemed. She held on to that vision, even if it sometimes felt like it was slipping further and further away. But today wasn't just any ordinary day. Today, Amara felt particularly tired. Her shift at the coffee shop had been long, with hardly any tips, and by the time she finished cleaning the office building, the night had grown cold. Her stomach growled loudly, reminding her that she hadn't eaten much since breakfast. It had been a long time since she'd had a proper meal, but she wasn't complaining. She was used to the hunger by now. As Amara walked down the sidewalk, the lights of an upscale restaurant caught her eye. It was a place she had walked by hundreds of times, but today it seemed different. She could hear the laughter and clinking of glasses inside. The rich, the successful, the ones who seemed to have it all together enjoyed their meals without a care in the world. Amara stood there for a moment, feeling the warmth coming from inside, and her stomach growled again. She didn't have the money to eat here, not even close. She could barely afford to buy herself a sandwich, let alone a meal at such an expensive place. But then, a thought crossed her mind. Maybe, just maybe, the restaurant had leftovers. She had heard of people asking for leftover food before, and while she wasn't usually the type to do something like that, desperation made people do strange things. Maybe the kitchen would have something they were about to throw away. Amara hesitated for a moment, wondering if it would be embarrassing. But then she thought about the days when she went without food and how tired she felt. Maybe this was the only chance she had tonight to fill her stomach. Taking a deep breath, Amara pushed open the door of the restaurant. She was greeted by the hostess, who looked at her curiously, as if wondering what a young woman like Amara was doing in such an expensive place. She swallowed her nerves and asked, "Do you have any leftover food that might be donated or given away?" The hostess raised an eyebrow. "Leftovers? We don't usually give them away," she said, her tone polite but firm. "But I can ask the manager." Amara nodded, feeling a little embarrassed but also hopeful. She stood off to the side, looking around at the elegant surroundings. The chandeliers hung high above, casting a soft glow over the marble floors. The smell of freshly prepared food wafted through the air, and her stomach churned at the thought of a warm meal. She wasn't trying to steal, she just wanted a little something to get by. A few moments later, the manager, a tall man with a neat suit, approached her. He looked her over with a slight frown, as if trying to decide what to say. "I understand. You're asking about leftovers?" he asked. His voice was calm but stern. Amara nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, I'm really hungry, and I thought maybe you might have some food you could spare. I promise I'm not causing trouble, I really need something to eat." The manager looked at her, then at the restaurant's bustling kitchen, as if weighing his options. After a brief pause, he gave a small sigh. "I'm not sure if we can do that," he said, "but I'll speak to the chef. It's not our usual policy, but we might have something we could give you." He seemed to soften a bit, though still unsure. Amara felt a wave of relief. Maybe, just maybe, things would work out. She thanked the manager and stood patiently, her heart pounding in her chest. A moment later, the manager returned with a small bag. "This is what we have," he said, handing it to her. "It's a few portions from tonight's dinner. It's not much, but it should be enough to tide you over." Amara's eyes widened in disbelief. She had expected maybe a small plate of food, but this was more than she had hoped for. "Thank you so much," she said, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to fall. The manager nodded and returned inside, leaving Amara standing in the doorway, clutching the bag. As she walked away from the restaurant, her stomach felt like it was finally getting the relief it had been craving. The food wasn't just a meal. It felt like a small miracle, like the universe had thrown her a lifeline. She smiled to herself, feeling a little lighter. But what happened next was something she never could have predicted, something that would change the course of her life forever. As Amara walked away from the restaurant, she felt a strange mix of emotions. Her stomach was finally full, but it wasn't just from the food. The kindness she had received had touched her deeply. It wasn't just the meal. It was the way the manager had treated her, the way he hadn't dismissed her request as something strange or impossible. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she wasn't invisible, like someone had seen her as a person and not just another face in the crowd. She couldn't help but smile. The weight of her exhaustion momentarily lifted. She walked home that evening, the night air cool against her skin, carrying the bag of leftovers in her hands. It was more than just a meal. It felt like a sign that maybe things weren't as hopeless as they seemed. Maybe she could keep fighting for her dreams even if they seemed far out of reach. She thought about her boutique again, her dream that she had tucked away deep in her heart. Every day she worked tirelessly to make ends meet, but there was always something holding her back, something she couldn't quite put her finger on. But today, after receiving that small act of kindness, she wondered if perhaps things might change for her after all. When Amara finally reached her tiny apartment, she sat down at her small kitchen table and unwrapped the bag. The food was simple, some grilled chicken, mashed potatoes, and a small side salad, but to her it felt like the finest meal in the world. She ate slowly, savoring every bite, grateful not only for the nourishment, but also for the kindness that had brought it to her. She couldn't stop thinking about the manager. He hadn't just handed her leftovers, he had listened to her, had treated her with dignity. In that brief moment, he had made her feel valued. As she finished her meal, Amara's phone buzzed. It was a message from her best friend, Keisha. She and Keisha had been close since childhood, and Keisha knew everything about Amara's struggles and dreams. The text was simple. "Hey girl, how's your night going? Let's hang soon." Amara smiled at the message and quickly typed back, "I'm good. Just had some leftover food from a fancy restaurant." "Crazy, huh?" Keisha replied almost immediately. "Leftovers from a fancy restaurant? That's insane. How did you get that?" Amara hesitated for a moment. She wasn't sure how to explain it all. She didn't want Keisha to think she was making things up, but she also didn't want to downplay how much it had meant to her. Finally, she wrote back, "It's a long story. I went to this restaurant nearby and I asked about leftovers. The manager actually gave me some. It's not a huge deal, but it felt nice." Keisha's response was quick. "You're kidding. That's crazy, but kind of amazing too. Maybe there's hope for us yet, huh? You never know where things will come from." Amara laughed softly. Keisha always had a way of making light of even the toughest situations. But tonight, Amara couldn't help but agree. Maybe there was hope. Maybe this was the universe telling her to keep going. She could feel a little spark of optimism that hadn't been there before. She set her phone down and leaned back in her chair, staring out the window. The city lights twinkled like stars, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like Maybe she wasn't alone in this fight. She wasn't sure why, but something about the encounter with the restaurant manager felt important. It felt like a sign that she was on the right path, even if she couldn't see where that path would lead. The next day, Amara went to her job at the coffee shop as usual, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was different. She had started her shift with the same tired routine, greeting customers, making lattes, and serving pastries. But in the back of her mind, she couldn't stop thinking about the manager from the night before. What if she could do something with her dreams? What if she could make a life for herself doing what she loved? As the hours passed, Amara's mind wandered to her boutique idea again. It seemed so far out of reach, so impossible. She had no savings, no investors, and no real connections in the fashion industry. But what if there was someone who could help? She didn't know where to start, but she knew that staying stuck in the same cycle of working just to survive wasn't enough anymore. She wanted more, and she was tired of waiting for someday. Around midday, as Amara was preparing an iced coffee for a regular customer, she glanced out the shop window and saw a familiar face walking down the street. It was the manager from the restaurant. He was casually strolling down the sidewalk. His face lit up with a warm smile, as if he was heading somewhere important. Amara's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't sure why, but she felt a strange pull to speak to him again. It was as if she had to seize this moment. Without thinking too much, she walked out from behind the counter, still holding the iced coffee, and stepped outside. "Excuse me, sir," she called out, her voice a little shaky. The manager turned toward her, a surprised yet pleasant look on his face when he recognized her. "Oh, it's you. How are you?" he asked, his tone friendly. "I'm good," Amara replied, her heart racing. "I just wanted to thank you again for last night. It really meant a lot to me. I know it wasn't much, but it was more than I've had in a long time." The manager smiled kindly. "You're very welcome. I'm glad I could help." Amara hesitated for a moment, unsure if she should say anything more, but something inside her urged her to speak. "Actually, I've been thinking, I have this dream. A dream of opening my own fashion boutique. I've always loved fashion, but I've never had the resources or support to make it happen. I know it sounds crazy, but..." She trailed off, her voice faltering. The manager looked at her, for a moment his gaze thoughtful. "It doesn't sound crazy at all. In fact, it sounds like something worth pursuing." Amara blinked, surprised by his response. She had expected him to dismiss her, to tell her she was dreaming too big, but instead he was encouraging her. "I have a feeling that you've got something special," he continued, "and maybe there's something I can do to help." Amara's heart skipped a beat. Could this be the break she was waiting for? Could this man, this stranger who had shown her kindness the night before, actually be someone who could help her change her life? "I don't know how," she said, her voice filled with hope. "But I would love to know if there's any way you could help me take that first step." The manager paused for a moment as if considering her words. Finally, he nodded. "You know what? I'll tell you what. I have a business mentor who helps people just like you. If you're serious about this, I'll introduce you to him." Amara could hardly believe what she was hearing. This wasn't just some passing kindness anymore. It was real, tangible support. "Thank you," she said, her voice full of emotion. "Thank you so much." The manager smiled, his eyes twinkling with understanding. "Sometimes, all you need is a little push in the right direction." And just like that, Amara's world began to shift. She hadn't expected anything like this. She hadn't expected her simple request for leftovers to lead to something so much more. But sometimes, life had a way of surprising you when you least expected it. The days that followed were filled with a mix of excitement and uncertainty for Amara. After her chance encounter with the restaurant manager, she couldn't stop thinking about what he had said. His words kept replaying in her mind. "I'll introduce you to my business mentor. If you're serious about this, I'll help you take the first step." She had never imagined that a simple conversation about leftovers could lead to something so significant. Amara tried not to get too carried away, but it was hard not to feel a sense of hope building inside her. For years, she had worked so hard, Yet everything seemed to stay the same. No matter how much she dreamed about opening her boutique, it felt like an impossible goal, something too far out of reach. But now, with this new possibility in front of her, she had a renewed sense of determination. This was a real chance, a real opportunity. A few days after their meeting, Amara received a call that she had been anxiously waiting for. It was from the manager. He was calling to set up a meeting with his business mentor. "I spoke to him," the manager said on the phone, "and he's agreed to meet with you. He's a successful businessman who knows what it takes to build something from nothing. He'll listen to you and see where you're at." Amara's heart raced as she agreed to meet with the mentor. She spent the next few days preparing, even though she had no idea what to expect. She wrote down everything she could think of, her vision, her goals, her dreams for her boutique. But deep down, she was also terrified. What if her dreams weren't enough? What if she wasn't good enough? She had so many questions and doubts, but she pushed them aside. She knew this was her chance, and she couldn't let fear hold her back. The meeting was set for a week later. On the day of the meeting, Amara found herself pacing around her apartment, trying to calm her nerves. She had no idea what to wear. She didn't have many fancy clothes, but she pulled out a simple yet elegant dress she had bought years ago, hoping it would make a good impression. She wasn't sure how to act either. What do you say to someone who could change your life? She had never been in a room with someone so successful before. When she arrived at the location, the office of the business mentor, it was a sleek, modern building in the heart of the city. The polished glass walls and the expensive decor made her feel small and out of place, but she tried not to let her insecurities show. She took a deep breath and walked into the building, her heart pounding in her chest. The receptionist greeted her with a polite smile, and after confirming her appointment, she was led into a spacious conference room. The walls were lined with bookshelves full of business books and important-looking documents. The polished wood table in the center of the room seemed intimidating, but she sat down, her nerves starting to get the best of her. Then the door opened, and in walked the business mentor, Mr. Jameson. He was tall, dressed in a sharp suit, and his confident stride spoke of years of experience and success. He had the air of someone who had built his life from the ground up, and Amara couldn't help but feel a little awestruck. But as he walked toward her and extended his hand, his smile was warm and genuine. "Amara, it's nice to meet you," he said, his voice steady but friendly. "I've heard a little bit about you. I'm excited to hear about your vision." She shook his hand, trying to steady her nerves. "Thank you for meeting with me. I really appreciate this opportunity." Mr. Jameson nodded, then took a seat across from her. "Of course. So, tell me about your dream. What's your vision for your boutique?" Amara took a deep breath, trying to calm the fluttering in her chest. This was her moment to share her dreams. She had rehearsed what she wanted to say, but now that she was actually sitting across from someone who could make a difference in her life, it felt real. She spoke from the heart, telling him everything, about how she had always loved fashion, how she had dreamed of creating a space that reflected both her African roots and the vibrant culture of the city she loved. She told him about the struggles she faced every day, working multiple jobs, barely scraping by, and how she had never given up on her dream, even when it seemed impossible. Mr. Jameson listened intently, nodding occasionally. He didn't interrupt her, and his eyes never left her as she spoke. He seemed to understand, to genuinely care about what she was saying. When she finished, there was a long moment of silence before he spoke. "Amara, I have to say I'm impressed," he began. "You have something that not everyone has: passion, determination, and a clear vision. I can see that you're serious about this, and that's the first step. A lot of people have ideas, but it takes someone with your level of commitment to actually make those ideas come to life." Amara felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had been so worried that her dream wouldn't be taken seriously, but hearing him say that made her feel like she was on the right path. Mr. Jameson continued, "You've got the right mindset, but now it's about turning that vision into a plan. You need a strategy, a way to get from where you are now to where you want to be. And that's where I come in." He smiled, and Amara couldn't help but feel a little more at ease. He went on to explain how he had helped many young entrepreneurs, like her, starting with the basics, creating a solid business plan, understanding finances, building a brand, and most importantly, staying resilient in the face of challenges. Starting a business isn't easy, he said, but if you're willing to put in the work, it can be incredibly rewarding. I'll help you set the foundation for your boutique. Amara's heart swelled with gratitude. She couldn't believe it. This was the opportunity she had been waiting for her whole life. Mr. Jameson wasn't just offering advice. He was offering his guidance, his mentorship, and his experience to help her succeed. She was no longer alone in her dream. I don't know what to say, Amara said, her voice full of emotion. I've been dreaming of this for so long, and it feels like I'm finally being given a chance. Thank you. Mr. Jameson smiled again. No need to thank me just yet. You've got the hard work ahead of you. But I believe in you. Let's get started. From that day forward, Amara's life began to change in ways she never expected. With Mr. Jameson's mentorship, she started putting together a business plan, figuring out the logistics of how to open her boutique, and researching everything she needed to know about the fashion industry. Each day felt like a new challenge, but Amara was no longer facing it alone. She had someone who believed in her, someone who was guiding her every step of the way. It wasn't easy. There were countless sleepless nights, endless paperwork, and moments of doubt. But each time Amara wanted to give up, she remembered the kindness she had received from the restaurant manager and how it had led her to this incredible opportunity. She thought about her dream, about how far she had come and how she was no longer just wishing for something to happen. She was making it happen, and with every step she took, she grew more confident in herself and her abilities. The dream that once seemed impossible was now becoming a reality. As the weeks turned into months, Amara's life began to shift in ways she had never imagined. The road to starting her boutique was still filled with obstacles, but with Mr. Jameson's help, she felt more confident and prepared to face them. Every piece of advice he offered, every step of the process he guided her through brought her closer to her dream. The fear and uncertainty she had once felt started to fade, replaced by a sense of purpose and determination. Amara's mornings were now filled with meetings, phone calls, and research. She spent hours at the library, learning about the fashion industry, supply chains, and retail business models. She researched everything from branding to customer service, doing everything she could to ensure that when her boutique finally opened, it would be a success. It was a far cry from the life she had lived just a few months ago, working 2 jobs just to make ends meet, barely having time to sleep, let alone chase a dream. Now, her days were packed with action, and for the first time in years, she could see the possibility of her dream becoming a reality. The hardest part, however, was finding the right location for her boutique. Amara wanted her shop to be in a place that felt vibrant and full of life, a place that matched the energy and creativity of her designs. But finding a good space that was both affordable and in the right location seemed almost impossible. Every time she found a place that seemed perfect, the price tag was too high, or if the price was right, the space wasn't in a good area. There were days when Amara wanted to give up, days when it felt like she was spinning her wheels and getting nowhere. But she reminded herself of how far she had come. She had already faced so many challenges and overcome so many obstacles. She wasn't going to let a tough search for a location stop her now. One afternoon, after a long day of searching for spaces, Amara felt particularly defeated. She sat at a coffee shop, sipping on a latte and staring at her laptop screen, trying to focus on the next steps. She thought about all the things she had already accomplished, writing a business plan, securing some initial funding, and even making connections with local designers and suppliers. But none of it felt like enough without the perfect space to bring her vision to life. Just as she was about to close her laptop and leave, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Keisha, her best friend, who had always been there to cheer her on. "Girl, I found something that might be perfect for you. It's a little rundown, but it's in a great location and it's in your price range. Check it out." Amara stared at the message, her heart racing. Could it be? She quickly pulled up the link Keisha had sent her and saw pictures of an old building in a lively part of town. It was a little worn around the edges, with faded paint and cracked windows. But the space was spacious, and it was right in the middle of the area she had been hoping for, close to a university campus and surrounded by trendy cafes and shops. It was perfect, or at least it could be with a little work. Without wasting a second, Amara called the number listed on the ad. The owner of the building was an older man who had recently inherited the property, but didn't have the time or energy to renovate it. He was looking for someone who could bring the space back to life. Amara explained her vision for the boutique and set up a time to meet him in person. When Amara arrived at the building the next day, she felt a sense of excitement she hadn't felt in weeks. The building was a bit run down, but she could see the potential. The high ceilings, the large windows that let in lots of natural light, and the open floor plan were all exactly what she had envisioned for her boutique. It was a bit of a fixer-upper, but that was something Amara was used to. She had always been good at seeing the beauty in things others might overlook. The owner, Mr. Lawrence, was a kind man in his 70s, with gray hair and a warm smile. He welcomed her in and showed her around the space. "I know it needs a lot of work," he said, "but I think you could make something beautiful out of it. You've got that look in your eye, the kind of look that tells me you've got vision." Amara smiled, feeling a sense of pride swell in her chest. She could see it too. "I can definitely make it work," she said confidently. "It's exactly what I need." They talked about the details, the rent, the lease terms, and what needed to be fixed before Amara could move in. The price was fair, and with a little negotiation, Amara was able to secure a deal that fit her budget. She left the meeting feeling elated, knowing that she had finally found the perfect spot for her boutique. The space may have needed work, but it was exactly what she had been looking for. Over the next few weeks, Amara threw herself into the renovations. She was determined to turn the space into something beautiful, something that would reflect her personal style and the culture she wanted to share with the world. She hired a small team of workers to help with the heavy lifting, painting the walls, replacing the flooring, and fixing the lighting. Every day she worked alongside them, picking out colors, arranging furniture, and making sure everything was just right. The process was tiring, and there were moments when she doubted if it would all come together. But she kept reminding herself of her dream, of how far she had come, and how close she was to achieving it. With each passing day, the space began to transform. The cracked floors were replaced with warm, polished wood. The dull walls were painted in soft, inviting colors that made the space feel modern and cozy. Amara carefully chose the displays, making sure each item reflected the style and personality of her boutique. She even designed a beautiful logo and signage for the front of the store, one that would stand out and capture the attention of passers-by. As the opening day drew closer, Amara's excitement grew. She had put so much work into this dream, and she could see it all coming together. The boutique would not just be a place to shop, it would be a space where people could experience her vision, her culture, and her passion for fashion. It was going to be a reflection of who she was, a celebration of creativity, hard work, and resilience. But just as she was preparing for the grand opening, Amara encountered another challenge, one that she had not anticipated. The boutique still needed a significant amount of inventory, and her budget was tight. She had spent nearly everything on the renovations and couldn't afford to buy all the items she needed to fill the store. Feeling defeated, Amara called Mr. Jameson, hoping for some guidance. He listened to her problem, and after a brief silence, he offered a solution. "Amara," he said, "sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. If you don't have enough inventory right now, don't worry. Start small. You can always expand later, but don't let fear of not having everything perfect stop you from opening. Your passion and your story are just as important as the products you sell." His words were exactly what Amara needed to hear. With renewed confidence, she decided to move forward with the opening, even if the store wasn't completely filled with inventory. She knew she had to start somewhere, and so, with a heart full of hope and a dream on the brink of becoming a reality, Amara prepared for the grand opening of her boutique. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers, and that was all that mattered. She had worked hard, sacrificed, and overcome countless obstacles to get to this point, and nothing could take away the pride she felt in how far she had come. The journey had been long and difficult, but Amara knew one thing for sure. This was just the beginning. The day of Amara's boutique opening finally arrived, and it was everything she had dreamed of. She woke up early, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. Her heart raced with anticipation as she prepared herself for what was about to happen. The months of hard work, the sleepless nights, and the countless obstacles she had overcome were all leading to this moment. Today was the day she would open the doors to her very own boutique. The dream she had carried with her for so long, the dream that once felt impossible, was now becoming a reality. She dressed in a simple, yet elegant outfit that reflected the style of her boutique. It was a perfect blend of modern fashion and the vibrant, colorful designs she had always loved. As she stood in front of the mirror, she took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. She had come so far, but today would be the true test of everything she had worked for. Amara arrived at the boutique early before the first customer would walk through the door. The small shop, with its freshly painted walls and polished floors, looked stunning. She had poured her heart into every detail, from the layout to the displays. The boutique was a reflection of her, bold, creative, and full of life. She stepped inside, taking it all in for a moment. The space felt like a dream come true. As the clock ticked closer to opening time, the nerves started to build up again. Amara had no idea what to expect. Would people actually come? Would they like what she had to offer? She had carefully curated her inventory, selecting pieces that reflected her unique style. But she knew there was always a risk in opening a new business. She had no guarantees, but she also knew that she had done everything in her power to make this work. Her first customer walked in just as the door opened. Amara smiled and greeted her, trying to keep her composure. The woman looked around the boutique with curiosity, taking in the carefully displayed clothing and accessories. Amara felt a rush of hope. This was it, the moment she had been waiting for. The customer picked out a few pieces and tried them on, and to Amara's delight, she made a purchase. The feeling of someone buying something from her store was like nothing she had ever experienced before. It was more than just a transaction. It was validation that her dream had a place in the world. Throughout the day, more customers came in. Some were drawn to the bright colors and unique patterns of her designs, while others were intrigued by the concept of the boutique itself. Many of them struck up conversations with Amara, asking about her background and what inspired her to open the shop. She shared her story with them. The long nights of working multiple jobs, the sacrifices she had made, and the dream she had always held on to, even when it seemed impossible. She could see the admiration in their eyes, and it made her feel proud of how far she had come. By the end of the day, the boutique had made a decent amount of sales, and Amara felt a sense of accomplishment she had never known before. She was tired, but it was a good kind of tired. The kind that came from knowing she had given everything she had to make this day happen. As the last customer left, Amara took a moment to stand behind the counter and reflect on everything that had brought her here. Her boutique was still in its early stages, and there would be many challenges ahead, but she had made it through the first day, and that, to her, felt like a huge victory. Over the next few weeks, Amara's boutique continued to grow. Word of mouth spread, and more customers came through the door. The small but loyal group of regulars quickly became a strong foundation for the business. Each time someone came in, it felt like a small victory, a step forward in building something lasting. She could see the potential for her boutique to become a part of the local community, a place where people felt welcomed and inspired. But success didn't come without its challenges. Amara still had to juggle running the boutique with her personal life. She didn't have the luxury of hiring a full staff yet, so she spent most of her time managing the store, handling inventory, and taking care of the finances. There were days when she felt overwhelmed, when the pressure of it all seemed like too much. But with each challenge, she found a way to push through. She reminded herself of how far she had come, how much she had already accomplished. Every obstacle was just another lesson, another opportunity to grow. One day as she was working in the boutique, the restaurant manager who had first helped her with the leftovers walked in. Amara's heart skipped a beat when she saw him. It had been a few months since they had last spoken, and she hadn't expected to see him again. But there he was, smiling as he entered the boutique. "Amara," he said warmly. "I had to come by and see how things were going. I've been hearing great things about your boutique." Amara smiled, feeling a wave of gratitude wash over her. "Thank you, I'm so glad you stopped by. It's been a crazy journey, but it's finally starting to come together." "I'm not surprised," the manager said. "You've got the heart and the vision to make it work. I knew from the moment we spoke that you were destined for something special." Amara felt a lump in her throat. She had never expected someone she had met so briefly to have such a profound impact on her life. His kindness had given her the confidence to chase her dream, and now, seeing her store thriving, it was hard to believe how far she had come. "I still remember when you were standing outside my restaurant asking for leftovers," he continued with a laugh. "It feels like a lifetime ago, doesn't it?" Amara nodded, her smile wide. "It really does. I never could have imagined then that I'd be here today with my own boutique. It's been a wild ride." He looked at her with admiration. "I'm proud of you, Amara. You took a chance, and now look at you. You're living your dream." The conversation left Amara feeling deeply moved. It was moments like these that made all the struggles worth it. The reminders that she wasn't just building a business. She was building something meaningful, something that mattered. She wasn't just creating a boutique. She was creating a space that connected with people, a place where her dreams and passions could be shared with the world. In the months that followed, Amara's boutique continued to thrive. Her sales grew, and her reputation spread. She became known not just for her unique designs but also for the personal touch she brought to her store. She took the time to get to know her customers, and they, in turn, became loyal supporters. The boutique was no longer just a business. It was a community, a place where people came to be inspired and where Amara's story was woven into the fabric of every design, every customer interaction, and every success. Eventually, Amara was able to hire a small team to help run the boutique. She could finally breathe a little easier, knowing that the business she had worked so hard for was now sustainable. She had built something from nothing and it was flourishing. But even as the business grew, Amara never forgot where she had come from. The struggles, the sacrifices, and the kindness of a stranger that had changed her life. Looking back on the journey, Amara knew that the miracle wasn't just about opening a boutique or finding success. It was about the people who believed in her, the support she had received along the way, and the belief that no dream was ever too big to chase. The miracle wasn't just in the business that had grown. It was in the way she had grown along with it, stronger, more confident, and more determined than ever before. Amara's story was no longer just about a girl asking for leftovers. It was about a woman who had taken a chance on herself, a woman who had turned a dream into reality. And that was a story worth telling.